She expected the human to kill her, but he did something completely unexpected. She was running for her life. Not from monsters, not from some alien horror, but from the very people who'd sworn to protect her. Dr. Alara Voss had stolen something they would burn worlds to reclaim, and now the entire Krellian Empire wanted her dead. But when the hunter became the hunted, she expected a knife in the dark, a bullet to silence her forever. Instead, she got him, a stranger with a reckless grin and a past as shadowed as her own. And the thing he did next? No one saw it coming. Please wait. Before we start, tap that iCard button in the top right corner and smash that subscribe button. Right now, hit the notification bell so you're first in line when new stories land. Alright, let's dive into the story. Chapter 1. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the quiet town of Eldermere, where the scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the crisp autumn air. The cobblestone streets were just beginning to stir as merchants set up their stalls, their voices rising in cheerful banter. Among them, a young woman with fiery red hair and a determined stride weaved through the crowd, her boots clicking against the stones. "Move it, Jasper! That crate's blocking the whole street," she called out, nudging a burly man with her elbow. Jasper chuckled, shifting the heavy load with a grunt. "Always in a rush, Leah. What's got your britches in a twist this time?" Leah rolled her eyes, though a smirk played on her lips. "Unlike some, I've got actual work to do. The blacksmith's waiting on these ingots, and if I'm late again, he'll skin me alive." "Ah, so it's fear driving you, not ambition," Jasper teased, dodging the playful swat she aimed at his shoulder. Leah shot him a mock glare. "Fear keeps me sharp. You should try it sometime." With that, she darted past him, her laughter trailing behind. The blacksmith's forge loomed ahead, the heat from the flames spilling onto the street. Leah wiped her brow as she stepped inside, the metallic tang of iron filling her nose. The blacksmith, a grizzled man with arms like tree trunks, didn't even glance up from his work. "You're late," he grumbled, his hammer striking the anvil with a deafening clang. Leah dropped the ingots onto the table with a thud. "And you're as cheerful as ever. Here's your medal. Can I go now? Or do you want to complain some more?" The blacksmith finally looked up, his stern expression cracking into a reluctant grin. "Cheeky brat. Fine, skram. But don't think I won't remember this next time you need a favor." Leah winked. "Wouldn't dream of it." She turned to leave, but froze as a distant scream pierced the air. The smile vanished from her face. The blacksmith's hammer stilled. "What in the—" Leah was already sprinting toward the door, her heart pounding. Outside, chaos erupted. People scrambled in every direction, their shouts blending into a panicked chorus. A shadow loomed over the marketplace, and Leah's breath hitched as she looked up. A massive winged creature circled above, its scales glinting like polished obsidian. Its roar shook the ground, sending stalls toppling like dominoes. "Dragon!" someone shrieked. Leah's mind raced. Dragons hadn't been seen in Eldermere for centuries. What was it doing here? And why now? A hand grabbed her arm, yanking her behind a cart. It was Jasper, his face pale. "Are you mad? Stand there gawking, and you'll be lunch." Leah shook him off, her eyes locked on the beast. "We need to do something." Jasper stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Yeah, that thing's the size of a barn. We run, we hide, we pray it picks someone else." The dragon let out another ear-splitting screech, diving toward the town square. Leah's fists clenched. Running wasn't in her nature. But before she could move, a figure stepped into the open, his cloak billowing in the wind. "Stay back," the stranger commanded, his voice cutting through the noise. He raised a hand, and a shimmering barrier erupted between the dragon and the town. Leah's jaw dropped. "Magic!" Jasper gulped. "Who in blazes is that?" The dragon recoiled, snarling, but the stranger stood firm. The tension in the air crackled like lightning. Leah felt it, a shift, a turning point. Whatever was happening, her life would never be the same again. And then the dragon spoke. "Enough, mage." It hissed, its voice like grinding stone. "You cannot protect them forever." The stranger's grip tightened on his staff. "We'll see about that." Leah's pulse roared in her ears. This wasn't just an attack. This was the beginning of something far bigger. And somehow, she knew she'd be right in the middle of it. Chapter 2. The dim glow of flickering overhead lights cast jagged shadows across the bunker's walls as Alara's vision sharpened. Her muscles tensed. Every instinct screamed at her to fight, but a dull ache in her ribs reminded her she wasn't in any shape to win. The cot beneath her creaked as she shifted, the rough fabric of her suit snagging on a loose spring. "You're awake." The voice was low and calm, but edged with something unreadable. She turned her head and saw him, the man who dragged her into the dark. He stood near a cracked hollow screen, its blue light washing over his features. Late 30s, maybe. Dark hair, tousled like he'd run fingers through it one too many times. His stance was relaxed, but his eyes? Sharp, calculating, like he'd already mapped out 6 ways this conversation could go. Alara's fingers twitched toward her thigh, where her disruptor should have been. Empty. Looking for this? He held up the weapon, spinning it lazily between his fingers before tucking it into his belt. Relax, document. If I wanted you dead, you'd have woken up in a morgue. She pushed herself upright, ignoring the protest in her joints. Who the hell are you? Marcus Kane. He didn't offer a handshake. And you're Dr. Alara Voss, genius nanotech engineer, wanted fugitive, and currently the most dangerous woman in the quadrant. Her jaw tightened. Flattering. Now tell me why you didn't turn me over to the Krellians when you had the chance. Marcus snorted, grabbing a dented canteen from the table and tossing it to her. Because they'd have skinned you alive for what you stole, and I'm not in the business of handing people over to butchers. Alara caught the canteen, hesitating before taking a swig. The water was stale metallic. So you're what? A mercenary with morals? Call a professional disagreement. He tapped the hollow screen, and a classified Krellian transmission flickered to life. The words Project Genesis pulsed red, followed by a kill order, her name front and center. Her stomach dropped. Marcus leaned against the table, arms crossed. You stole something big, something that's got the Krellian High Command pissing plasma. So here's the deal. You tell me what's so special about that core, and I get us both out of this hellhole alive. Alara wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. And if I say no, then I walk. And you get to find out how long you last against a battalion of enforcers with a bounty on your head. His tone was casual, but his gaze never wavered. She studied him, the scar along his collarbone, the way his fingers drummed a silent rhythm against his arm. Not nervous, impatient, like he was counting down to something. You're not just some scavenger, she said slowly. Marcus smirked. And you're not just some scientist. He pushed off the table and grabbed a worn pack from the floor. Tick-tock, document. Either trust me or die alone. Your call. The bunker's ventilation system groaned a hollow sound that filled the silence. Outside, the distant echo of a patrol siren wailed. Alara exhaled. Fiend. But if you betray me, I'll make sure you choke on that smug grin. Marcus chuckled, slinging the pack over his shoulder. Noted. He tossed her second pistol, an older model but well-maintained. Now let's move. They'll have traced your biosignature by now. She caught the gun, checking the charge. You still haven't told me why you're doing this. He paused at the door, glancing back. Let's just say the Krellians owe me a debt. His voice dropped, colder than the steel in his grip. And I always collect. The door hissed open, revealing a maze of dripping pipes and flickering emergency lights. Somewhere in the distance, metal screeched, something heavy moving fast. Alara tightened her grip on the pistol. Revenge. Marcus didn't look back as he stepped into the dark. Justice. The door sealed behind them with a final, hollow click. Chapter 3. The forest was alive with whispers, the rustling leaves masking the sound of their footsteps as Leah, Jasper, and the mysterious mage, who had introduced himself as Kale, pushed deeper into the ancient woods. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and sharp. Jasper wiped the sweat from his brow, his usual bravado replaced by nervous energy. Remind me again why we're traipsing through a cursed forest instead of, say, hiding in a nice, safe cellar. Kale didn't slow his pace, because cellars won't stop what's coming. The dragon was just the beginning. Liat adjusted the strap of her pack, her fingers brushing the hilt of her dagger. And you still haven't told us what is coming, or why that dragon spoke like it knew you. Kale's jaw tightened. Some things are better shown, not said. Jasper threw up his hands. Oh, fantastic. Cryptic warnings and doom-laden prophecies. Just what I signed up for. Liat smirked. You didn't sign up for anything. You ran into the forest screaming like a startled goat. I was strategically retreating. Jasper shot back. Before Liat could retort, Kale held up a hand, silencing them. His eyes narrowed. We're not alone. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Then a twig snapped. From the shadows emerged 3 figures clad in dark leather, their faces obscured by hoods. The leader stepped forward, a curved blade glinting in the dappled light. Well, the mage and his little friends. The master will be pleased. Leah's hand flew to her dagger. Who's the master? And why does he sound like a bad tavern villain? The lead assassin chuckled. You'll find out soon enough if you live that long. Kale's staff glowed faintly, his voice low and dangerous. Run. Jasper didn't need to tell twice. He bolted, Liao right behind him, as Kale unleashed a blast of shimmering energy. The forest erupted into chaos. Spells collided with steel. Trees shuddered under the force. Liao skidded behind a moss-covered boulder, Jasper panting beside her. We can't just leave him. Jasper peeked over the rock, then ducked as a dagger embedded itself where his head had been. I'm open to suggestions. Liat gritted her teeth. Distract them. What? Before he could argue, she vaulted over the boulder, dagger flashing. One assassin turned just in time to block her strike, but Liat twisted, driving her knee into his gut. He staggered, and she slammed the pommel of her dagger into his temple. The second assassin lunged, but Jasper, bellowing like a madman, barreled into him, sending them both crashing into the undergrowth. Kale, meanwhile, was locked in a deadly dance with the leader, their movements a blur of magic and steel. The assassin feinted left, then slashed upward. Kale barely dodged, his sleeve tearing open. Leah saw her chance. She snatched a fallen branch and swung it hard at the assassin's back. He hissed in pain, whirling on her, only for Kale to slam his staff into the man's chest. A pulse of energy sent him flying. Silence fell, broken only by Jasper's ragged breathing as he untangled himself from the bushes. Remind me never to follow you two again. Kale wiped blood from his lip, his gaze locked on the unconscious assassins. They won't be the last. The master's reach is long. Leah sheathed her dagger, her mind racing. Then we cut it off. But first, you're finally going to tell us what's really going on. Kale sighed, the weight of centuries seeming to press down on him. Very well, but you won't like it. Jasper groaned. Why am I not surprised? The wind howled through the trees as Kale began his tale, the shadows stretching longer around them. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, or maybe it was something worse. Leah shivered. The game had just gotten much, much darker. Chapter. For the transit hub's ruins loomed around them like the skeleton of some long-dead beast, its shattered glass dome letting in shafts of pale moonlight. Alara pressed her back against a crumbling pillar, her breath coming in short, controlled bursts. The Krellian dropship's searchlights carved through the darkness, painting the ground in jagged stripes of white. Marcus crouched beside her, his pistol a steady extension of his arm. You said the core wasn't a weapon. Start talking. A plasma bolt seared past, close enough to singe the air. Alara flinched. Not here. Here's as good a place as any to die. Marcus shot back, but he was already moving, pulling her behind a collapsed service drone. The metal whined under their weight. Alara swallowed hard. The core burned against her ribs, hidden in her suit's inner lining. It's a stabilizer. 4 fold-space jumps. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Bullshit. The Krellians have had fold tech for years. Not like this. Another explosion rocked the ground, showering them with debris. She gripped his arm. Their drives are unstable. One wrong calculation, and the ship tears itself apart. This, she tapped her chest, makes it foolproof. No more trial and error. No more lost crews. Marcus stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then, abruptly, he barked a laugh. You stole the key to their entire damn fleet. It wasn't theirs to begin with. The words tore out of her raw. They took it from my lab, from my team. And then She cut herself off, jaw clenched. The dropship's engines roared overhead, drowning out whatever Marcus might have said. He grabbed her wrist, yanking her to her feet. We need to move. Now. They sprinted for the hub's eastern exit, boots skidding on broken tile. A squad of enforcers materialized from the smoke, rifles raised. Marcus didn't slow. He fired twice, 2 clean headshots, and kicked open a rusted maintenance hatch. Alara dove through, Marcus right behind her. The hatch sealed with a groan, plunging them into near-total darkness. Somewhere ahead, water dripped in a steady, maddening rhythm. She leaned against the wall, gasping. They'll have the exits locked down. Then we don't use the exits. Marcus pulled a small lumigel stick from his pocket, its sickly green light revealing a narrow service tunnel. This runs under the sector, comes up near the docks. Alara eyed the tunnel. You've done this before. Once or twice. He started forward, then paused. That core, is it really worth all this? She thought of her lab in flames, of the way Commander Jax had smiled as he gave the order. It's worth more. Marcus studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Then let's get the hell out of here. The tunnel swallowed them whole. Somewhere behind, metal screeched as the enforcers began cutting through the hatch. Alara quickened her pace. What's at the docks? Marcus's grin flashed in the dim light. An old friend, and a ship fast enough to leave this nightmare behind. She almost laughed. You have friends? Only the ones who owe me money. The darkness pressed in around them, but for the first time since this began, Alara felt something like hope. It lasted exactly 3 seconds before the ground trembled, a deep, visceral shudder that sent cracks spiderwebbing up the walls. Marcus cursed. They're bombing the sector. Alara's blood ran cold. They'd rather bury the core than let it escape. Then we'd better not be here when it collapses. He broke into a run, Alara right on his heels. The tunnel groaned around them, dust raining from the ceiling. Somewhere ahead, a light flickered. The docks, and their only chance, were close. If they made it. Chapter 5. The ruins of Vorthax loomed before them. Jagged spires of black stone clawing at the storm-choked sky. Lightning flickered in the distance, casting eerie shadows across the broken courtyard where Leah, Jasper, and Kale now stood. The air smelled of ozone and something older, something wrong. Jasper swallowed hard, his usual bravado nowhere to be found. You're sure this is where the last piece of the keystone is hidden? Because it looks like the kind of place that eats people. Kale adjusted the straps of his pack, his expression grim. Positive, and it will eat us if we're not careful. Leah rolled her shoulders, her fingers brushing the hilt of her dagger. Then let's not be careful. Let's be fast. Jasper groaned. Why do I even bother? A low, guttural growl echoed from the darkness ahead. The trio froze as a pair of glowing red eyes materialized from the shadows, followed by another and another. Wraithhounds, Kale hissed, raising his staff. Don't let them bite you. Their venom liquefies organs. Jasper's voice cracked. Liquefies. The creatures lunged. Leah ducked under a snapping maw, driving her dagger into the beast's flank. It howled, dissolving into black smoke. They don't like steel. Noted. Jasper yelped, swinging his torch wildly as another hound circled him. But I'd really prefer fire. Kale's staff flared to life, a beam of white-hot energy searing through 2 hounds at once. Then run. The gate's just ahead. We only need to hold them off long enough to get through. They bolted the Wraithhound's snarls at their heels. Leah vaulted over a fallen pillar, Jasper right behind her, his breath coming in ragged gasps. I swear, if I live through this, I'm becoming a farmer. The gate loomed before them, a massive archway carved with runes that pulsed faintly in the gloom. Kale skidded to a halt, pressing his palm against the stone. The runes flared brighter, and with a groan, the ancient doors began to grind open. Go, go. They barely slipped through before the Wraith Hounds crashed against the closing gate, their howls of frustration fading as the stone sealed shut. Silence. Then Jasper doubled over, hands on his knees. I hate this. I hate all of this. Leah wiped the sweat from her brow, grinning despite herself. Admit it. You'd be bored out of your mind without us. Bored is good. Bored means alive. Kale ignored them, his gaze fixed on the chamber ahead. The air here was thick with dust, the floor littered with bones. At the center stood a pedestal, and atop it, the final fragment of the keystone, glowing faintly. Leah's smile faded. That's it, isn't it? The last piece. Kale nodded. But it's never this easy. As if on cue, the ground trembled. The bones at their feet began to rattle, then rise, assembling themselves into a towering skeletal figure wielding a sword of shadow. Jasper groaned. Why do you always jinx us? The bone colossus roared, swinging its blade in a deadly arc. Kale barely deflected it with a burst of magic, the force sending him skidding back. Leah darted forward, daggers flashing. Jasper distracted. Ow! Be annoying. You're good at that. Jasper muttered something unkind under his breath, but grabbed a loose skull and hurled it at the colossus. Hey, ugly. Bet you couldn't even win an arm wrestling match. The creature turned, its hollow eyes locking onto him. Leah seized the opening, driving her dagger into its spine. The colossus shuddered, then collapsed back into a lifeless heap of bones. Kale exhaled sharply. Well done. Now let's finish this. He reached for the keystone fragment, but the moment his fingers touched it, the walls shook. A deep, resonant voice boomed through the chamber. You are too late, mage. The ground split open, and from the fissure emerged a figure clad in dark armor, his face obscured by a horned helm. The master. Jasper paled. Oh, come on. Leah tightened her grip on her dagger. Guess we do this the hard way. The master laughed, the sound like grinding stone. There is no other way. And then the real fight began. Chapter 6. The docking bay was chaos incarnate. Ships screamed into the smoke-choked sky as the Krellian bombardment turned the district into a cratered wasteland. Marcus and Alara burst through a collapsing service tunnel just as the ceiling behind them gave way in a roar of dust and twisted metal. Move! Marcus grabbed her arm, dragging her toward a battered gunship at the far end of the bay. Its engines were already spooling up, the ramp still lowered like a dare. Alara's lungs burned. That's your plan? A rust bucket held together by prayers. Marcus flashed a grin. She's got personality. A plasma round punched into the ground beside them, sending molten debris flying. Alara stumbled, but Marcus caught her, shoving her forward. Less talking, more running. They reached the ramp just as a squad of enforcers rounded a burning cargo haulier. Marcus spun, firing 3 shots in rapid succession. 2 enforcers dropped, the third ducked for cover. Get us in the air. Marcus bellowed into the ship. A voice crackled over the comms. Charming as ever, Kane. The ramp began retracting. Alara scrambled inside, Marcus leaping after her just as the ship lurched upward. The remaining enforcers opened fire, rounds pinging off the hull. Then they were climbing, the base shrinking below them as the gunship punched through the smoke. Alara collapsed against the bulkhead, gasping. The core was still secure against her ribs, but her hands shook. You could have mentioned your friend was military. Marcus wiped blood from a cut above his eyebrow. Ex-military. Big difference. The cockpit door slid open, revealing a woman with close-cropped silver hair and a cybernetic eye that gleamed crimson. She took one look at Alara and sighed. You stole a scientist? I thought we agreed no more strays after the last one tried to dissect you. Marcus snorted. Alara, meet Captain Rin Vero. Rin, this is the woman who's going to make us rich. Rin's eye flickered as she scanned Alara. Doubtful. She turned back to the controls. Buckle up. We've got company. The proximity alarm blared. On the view screen, 3 Krellian interceptors locked onto their tail. Alara's stomach dropped. They're not letting go. Marcus dropped into the co-pilot's seat, hands flying over the console. Rin, I see them. Rin yanked the controls hard to port, sending the ship into a spiraling dive. The city spires whirled past the view screen. You got a plan? Or are we just hoping they crash into each other? Marcus grinned. I love it when you're optimistic. Alara gripped the seat as the ship barrel rolled, the G-forces pressing her into the padding. This is insane. Insane works. Rin fired the aft thrusters, flipping the ship upside down as they skimmed under a crumbling sky bridge. One interceptor clipped the structure and exploded in a fireball. The remaining two adjusted course, their cannons charging. Marcus tapped a command into the console. Rin, remember that little trick I taught you on Cerberus 9? Rin's mouth curved. You're gonna get us killed. Or promoted. He hit the trigger. The gunship's hidden payload erupted. A swarm of micromines billowed into the interceptor's path. The lead ship detonated instantly. The second veered wildly, only to be caught in the blast. Silence. Alara exhaled. That actually worked. Marcus leaned back, stretching. Told you she had personality. Rin ignored him, adjusting their trajectory toward the upper atmosphere. We clear the jump point in 6 minutes. Where are we going? Alara and Marcus exchanged a glance. The fringe, he said at last. Somewhere, the Krellians won't follow. Rin's eyes dimmed. That's a long way with a target on our backs. Alara touched the core through her suit. It's worth it. Outside, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere among them was safety, or another kind of hell. Either way, they were committed now. Chapter 7. The final battle raged atop the shattered spire, the storm itself howling around them as Leah, Jasper, and Kale faced the Master. The assembled keystone pulsed in Kale's grip, its light flickering against the unnatural darkness that coiled around their enemy, like living smoke. Leah spat blood from her split lip, tightening her grip on her dagger. You know, for someone who calls himself Master, you're really bad at finishing fights. The Master's armored form loomed, his voice dripping with contempt. You're insects. I have walked this world for centuries. You will not be the ones to end me. Jasper, leaning heavily on a broken spear, managed a weak grin. Yeah, well, we got a habit of proving people wrong. Kale raised the keystone, its glow intensifying. Enough talk. This ends now. The Master lunged, his shadow blade screaming through the air. Kale barely deflected it with a burst of magic, the impact sending shockwaves through the crumbling tower. Leah darted in, her dagger carving a gash across the Master's side, but black tendrils of smoke instantly knit the wound shut. Jasper cursed. Oh, that's cheating. The Master backhanded him, sending Jasper sprawling. Pathetic. Leah's vision went red. She launched herself at the Master, striking with reckless fury. Nobody hits my friends. Her dagger found a gap in his armor, sinking deep, but the Master grabbed her throat, lifting her off her feet. You first, then. Kale's voice cut through the chaos, raw with power. No. A searing beam of light erupted from the keystone, striking the Master square in the chest. He roared, his form flickering between flesh and shadow. Leah dropped to the ground, gasping as Jasper staggered to her side. Now, Kale shouted. All three together. Understanding flashed between them. Leah grabbed Jasper's hand. Jasper grabbed Kale's. The keystone's light flared blindingly bright, a torrent of energy surging through them, and then out. The Master screamed as the light tore through him, unraveling his very essence. This is not. I cannot be. The darkness shattered. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the spire trembled, the storm above clearing as if wiped away by an unseen hand. Sunlight spilt across the broken stones. Jasper collapsed onto his back, wheezing. Please tell me that's really it. Kale slumped against a pillar, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. It's over. He's gone. Leah sat up, wincing at her bruises. So we won. A slow grin spread across Kale's face. We won. Jasper groaned, throwing an arm over his eyes. Good, because if I had to fight one more ancient evil, I was going to start charging. Leah laughed, the sound bright against the quiet. What? Like a mercenary? Damn right. Heroism doesn't pay the bills. Kale shook his head, but there was warmth in his eyes. Come on, let's go home. As they helped each other stand, the wind carried away the last remnants of shadow. Somewhere in the distance, birds began to sing. The world, at last, was at peace. And for the first time in a long while, so were they. And that was the end of the story. Comment below if you want the next chapter, and hit that like button. Please subscribe, turn on the bell, and as always, keep the last light burning.